So today I'm continuing with my series on conscious co-creating. Started that last week, and just want to talk a little bit about what that actually means to me. First of all, conscious, that we are always co-creating. We are always creating our experience through our way of thinking, through our way of feeling, through our way of acting. And we are interacting with what we sometimes call the creative medium of the universe. And that we are co-creating with that all the time. But a lot of times I think that it's not conscious. It's subconscious or unconscious. That the subconscious mind is what is doing the creating. And the subconscious mind is filled with all sorts of stuff that we may or may not really like. Information, ideas that were taken on when we were kids, or past lives even. Some way of that's energy. And so what happens is that the subconscious then produces onto the conscious mind, and the conscious mind then creates from that. What Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, said, and this is the book, Keep a True Lent, he says, the subconscious mind is a vast silent realm that lies back of the conscious mind and between it and the superconscious mind. Now, he uses superconscious to identify God mind, the one mind. And what he says is that what happens for most of us is that the conscious mind looks to the subconscious, it produces onto it those ideas that are probably not even true, of the things that we learned about ourselves, and that we begin, then how we create from that. And so what he says is really what we should be doing is looking to the superconscious mind, the mind of God, if you will, and co-creating from that place. That the mind of God, which I talked about a little bit last week, that's filled with these divine ideals, the one mind that we are all actually expressions of, is filled with these, what he called divine ideals, which are freedom and love and peace and joy and abundance and wholeness and all of these ideas. And that we are here to be co-creating that. We are here to be expressions of those ideas. We are here to co-create this world that embodies those ideals. And that we are here to be truly servants of those higher ideals. And so, like with Jesus in the prayer, he said, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." The consciousness of heaven, the kingdom of God, if you will, divine ideals. Those divine ideals which exist in the mind of God, that will be done here on the earth as well, and allow it to be done through me. And so I believe that we are here to do that, to experience and to connect with and to express those divine ideals in the world, and to co-create with that. Because I also believe, I hold, as I said, each of us is an expression of all of that. We sometimes in Unity call it our Christ nature, our divine light, our true self. Whatever term you might resonate with, it's like this divine mind is replete with all of those ideals, and it expressed itself as you and me in what we call the Christ. And so, whether you resonate with the terminology or not, I believe that we are here to embody the Christ. To be the body of the Christ on the earth, if you will. And to live that in this plane of existence. So I believe that truly is our greatest desire. When I talked about last week is that desire really is born, all true desire is born from that. And so our opportunity as self-conscious human beings is to become conscious of those divine ideals. As Charles Fillmore said, to allow those divine ideals in what he called the superconscious to be conscious. Again, going back to this terminology of the Christ, that Christ energy, when I be lifted up, I will draw all to myself. The I, the Christ, that true nature. When we allow that to be our focus, when we allow that to come into our conscious mind and do our best to keep it in our conscious mind, then we are co-creating from the consciousness of the Christ. And I think that's really what we are here to do. So when we look at our ideas of what we desire, what we want in the physical world, what I encourage us to do is to seek that within us, to allow that divine nature to inform us of what we desire, and to be in service to that, to lift that up into our consciousness so we become conscious co-creators with the divine, as the divine expressing as the Christ. We become the embodiment of that divine energy. We become the embodiment of it through our focus, through our feeling nature, through our thinking nature. And then as we embody it in our thinking and our feeling, then our actions are inspired by it. And we create a world that embodies those divine ideals. I think when we think about demonstration or manifestation, about creating what we want in this life, we do have the power. You are a creative being. Quantum mechanics is proving to us that the universal medium responds to our thinking, to our feeling, that we are co-creative beings. And we have that power to create, to manifest, to demonstrate. And so often I think that when we think about what we want, what we desire, we're getting our information from out here, from the world around us. That we're looking at what somebody else has and says, I want that. Or we're looking at what we think we don't have, and we're beginning from a place of lack, looking at what we don't have and say, I need that to fill this emptiness of what I think I don't have. And so the world cannot provide anything that you desire. Nothing. Nothing. The world out there can reflect the quality of that divine ideal, but the world does not provide anything that you truly desire. There is only one source, right? One source. And that source is within you. It is that divine life that is expressing as you and as me. As Eric Butterworth says, God can only do for you what God can do through you. It doesn't come from out there. It comes from in here. And when we embody those divine ideals, then we begin to create experiences through our thinking, through our feeling, through our acting that embody those divine ideals. And what's another piece that I think is so important in this process is to recognize that we are co-creating with each other as well. We don't create in isolation. And so as we are looking at what is it that we want to demonstrate, what is it that we want to manifest in the world, it is essential as we embody that Christ energy to recognize that so do you. You embody that Christ energy. I embody that Christ energy. All of the earth embodies that Christ energy. There is only one. In the beginning was the Christ, and not one thing came into being except through the Christ. Not one thing. Not one thing. And so everything is the embodiment of Christ. And so as we're looking at what we want to manifest and demonstrate in the world, rather than being so individualistic about it, I invite us to be more universal about it. That when we're considering what it is I desire to manifest in my life, that we take into consideration a deeper connection with the divine in us and in all. In the earth, in the plants, in the waters, in the animals. I mean, this is a silly, maybe inane example. But it speaks to something that I was really in touch with this week. There is this bottled water that I absolutely love. I'm not putting in a plug for anybody, but it's called Essentia. I don't know what it is about this water, but it tastes so good. And so I've been finding myself buying these bottles of water because that's what I want. I like it. But as I was sitting even with the other day, I was sitting in this message. I was sitting in what Spirit was really wanting me to get. And I recognized that even though I want that, I think I want that, it fills some kind of need for me, that I really have not stopped to consider the impact of that on the environment, on the other people in the world. And so I think it's important for us as we're looking at what we want to demonstrate and manifest in the world is to recognize that we only want something in our lives that manifests and demonstrates the common good. The good for all people. The good for all the environment and the earth. That we hold in our hearts our connection as Christed beings with every other Christed being on the planet. Human, animal, water, plant, all of it. that we hold that in our hearts and connect with that, the universal Christ, not just the individuated expression of the Christ that is you and me. And to respond to that. Eric Butterworth also said, I don't remember what book it was in, but he said that how do you know if it's a true desire? And he said, you know it's a true desire if you would want the very same thing for every human being. If you would want the very same thing for every human being. And I go back to the divine ideals. Because I think I can say unequivocally that I would want for every human being to experience those divine ideals in their lives. Abundance, freedom, peace, love, joy. And then how that manifests in our lives is going to look very different because we're unique beings. So I said last week that the secret to manifestation is to continue to focus on the what, not on the how. And I want to just go back to that just for a moment. When I talk about the what, I'm talking about the divine ideals. So it begins there. To focus on the what. What is it that I truly desire? And can I say that I desire the very same thing for every human being on the planet? Now you might say, yeah, I would love every human being on the planet to have a Jaguar. Maybe. But imagine the pollution and everything that would be created by that. But it's a simple, I'm just joking, but what does that represent? What divine ideal is represented by the thing out there that I think I want? And when I can connect with what is deeper, what my deeper longing is, then I can know that that's a true desire. And when I talked about last week, I shared a little example with you last week that what was coming up for me in the outer was greater financial abundance. So that was what I was, I was starting from a place of lack, of need. That's what I want, that's what I need to fill this lackful place within me. And so when I realized I was doing that, I get to stop. What is the divine ideal represented by that? And what I got in touch with was freedom. I want to experience freedom. The divine ideal of freedom. And then I get the opportunity to go within and connect with freedom. What does that feel like? What does that smell like? What does that taste like? How do I experience that? And then from that place, then what comes up is in how might that be expressed uniquely as me. And it'll be different for you. So I think the ideals or the what that we're talking about is universal. We want that for everybody. But how that demonstrates or manifests in my life is probably going to be different than how it manifests in your life. Because we're unique expressions of that Christ nature. And so for me, it came up as creative expression. So I get to be with that. What does that feel like? What does that look like? And as I shared with you last week, then a seed is born from that, and it's writing a book, doing a CD, creating workshops. And then again, seeds get born from that. So all that I'm talking about here is using our power of imagination, which Charles Fillmore said is one of our primary faculties as human beings. Primary power is to envision something. We have the power to envision something that does not already exist in the physical. So as human beings, we can envision something that does not already exist in the physical. So we employ our power of imagination. But the cool thing about that is that even though it may not be in the physical, if we can have an image of it, it means it exists somewhere already. So it exists somewhere already, and if we open ourselves up to it, we get the vision of it. This higher vision of what already exists, just waiting for us to bring it into demonstration. Aren't y'all jumping up in your chair right now? Just, wow, isn't that cool? Oh my gosh. So we have the power to envision that, to catch the vision. Now, when I talk about catching the vision, I'm talking about really seeking that higher vision. Not the vision from, oh, well, I'm seeing it out there, so I must need it in here. No, going within, getting the vision from within, the spirit, the life, the Christ energy that is expressing is you. What is moving through you and me? And then I love Reverend Michael Beckwith has a visioning process that he created. And one of the questions he says to ask is, what is Spirit's highest vision? What is Spirit's highest vision for this thing? And to go within and ask that question, be with that question, to envision inside of us, envision in our own consciousness, and to catch that vision. And then to use our power of imagination to see how that might manifest. To engage our power of imagination. And then, and this will be my last point, I promise. Then we engage our power of faith. Faith is our power to see, to know, even though it's not already in manifestation. Faith is our power to know that it already is. Even though we can't see the evidence of it, as Paul said, it's our conviction that it already exists. And it is the evidence in our own minds, in our own bodies, in our own feeling that it already exists. So, I said that was my last point, and it will be my last point. We'll start there next week about how, once you catch the vision, once you catch this higher vision, once you ask, what is Spirit's highest vision for my demonstration of freedom, so to speak? It might be something different for you. What is Spirit's highest vision for that? And then getting in that idea of creative expression for me. Then you ask, well, what is Spirit's highest vision for that? And then what comes out of that? Then you imagine what that might look like, what that might feel like, how that's going to be once it is manifested. You get the vision of that, and even though it's not in the physical, you can have the vision of it. And when you have the vision of it, you know that it is already there. It is already done, waiting for you to receive it and to bring it into manifestation. It's not magic. It all works according to spiritual law. So I'm not telling you something you probably don't already know. I'm just trying to reacquaint us with that. And then, when we have the vision, this can be the tough part. You know it's there, but why isn't it already here? I want it now. That's where the faith comes in. I see it. I know it. I know it's already there. Even though I can't see the evidence of it, I know it. Hold to that. And then next week, we'll talk about what to do with that.